Hey, everybody. I am Santita Jackson. You're listening to AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. The Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Like and subscribe there. Like and subscribe. Hey, Ashley King from Memphis, Tennessee, sending you so much love, and everybody else there. I'm going to go through everybody in a hot second. But of course, we're on the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. And I hope that you all will continue to share the show, share and like the show. I'm so touched when I read your descriptions of the show that we have conversations that are authentic conversations. And we ask the questions that a lot of people don't want to ask, not just in corporate media, but even in independent media. We touched some of those third rails, and that's important, I think. And so let's have one of those conversations about a Rubicon that was crossed just a few hours ago. It turns out that after all of the calling and the just really in the back and forth, it appears that Vice President Kamala Harris has crossed the threshold, and she has the necessary number of delegates to be the Democratic nominee. First time in history that this has happened, that a Black woman has headed a major party ticket. And so congratulations to her. But what does all of this mean? Is a win for me a win for we? Should we be asking questions now? One of the things that I think we should have learned from the Obama years, as thrilling as it was, as exciting as it was, accountability. Remember, the people, even though we have so much pride vested in these figures for various and sundry reasons, whether it's color or gender or their personal orientations, whatever it is. The fact is, they go on to be elected, hopefully, and represent people who did not vote for them. And I can just tell you this, Morgan Elise Johnson of the tribe. My mother and father have been together 63 years. They've been married 62. And my mother, all 5 feet, nothing inches of her, said of my father, who was 6'3", bless his heart. She said, I'd never be married to someone I couldn't fight. Not physically fight, but someone who respects you enough to go toe to toe, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I mean, that's what this is supposed to be, and that's politics, everybody. Before you get who you want, you need to get what you need. Remember that. That counts for everybody. And it's very interesting. Our Black leadership, who we send, not the Blacks who are presented to us, the people we send, we hold them accountable. But everybody else, we're like, well, we got to get them in. No, 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 no. We got some real problems. Folks cannot afford groceries. We are ending DEI. Affirmative action has been gutted. And it's ironic that in this moment that affirmative action has been gutted, we have fallen in love with a Black woman to make her president of the United States. Well, I'll put that out there as a question for you all, because that's very interesting to me that that's happening at this time. But you can't make this stuff up. But I think we have to, of course, give our congratulations to Kamala Harris and thank you, Joe Biden, for having her on the ticket, and for however he got there. He did step aside, and we pray for his continued health, well, for his health and strength, because it's very clear that we saw from this debate that he has been struggling. He's struggling, and that's nothing to laugh about. But we certainly want him and his family. We wish them Godspeed, and we want them to get the help that they need. So let's get right to it. I've got a tremendous panel that will continue to grow, because in the next hour, we're going to have Jeff Cohen, the founder of Fairness and Accuracy in Reporting. You should know, I'm sure you know who they are, Morgan Elise Johnson. And he's the co-founder of Netroots Action. And he and Norman Solomon, Jeff Cohen and Norman Solomon, have been doing something over the past 2.5 years that people have considered blasphemy. They had what they said, "Don't run, Joe." That was the first name of the campaign. And then it was "Step aside, Joe." And now that has happened. So now what? Now what? That's the question. So I guess that is maybe that's the prevailing question of the day. And now we have Kamala. They say that maybe they will affirm her. She will be voted in as a nominee on August 7th before they get to Chicago. Do you think that's a good idea? Let me know what you think. Please go to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Everybody get there and meet Ashley. Ashley was there first this morning. Hello. and I want you to come to the Rainbow Push International Conference, which will be held just before the Democratic the Democratic National Committee Convention. Reverend Dr. Jeanette Wilson, the dates, I just want to make sure that I'm correct. June 5th, excuse me, August 15th through the 17th?
To the 18th. We have one on Sunday.
Through the 18th. All right. And then the convention, the DNC, begins on that Monday. And let us be clear, Rainbow Push is not an adjunct of the Democratic National Committee, but we are in Chicago where the Democratic National Committee convention will be held. And everybody's coming here, not just delegates, but those who are going to be engaged in demonstrations, who will be lifting their voices to express their opinions about various and sundry issues. So let's get right to it, everybody. You've heard me call her name several times. I urge you to go to the tribe, TRIIBE. Become a member, support them. As my father often says, you can't ride to freedom on Pharaoh's chariot. Independent media need your support. Not only do they need your viewership and your listenership, they need your money. Okay? That's right. That's right. So please support the tribe. And she's a brilliant filmmaker. And we're so excited that she's with us today. We've got Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, one of the runaway representatives. And I'm so glad he's a delegate to the convention. Cannot wait to hear what you're thinking about all this. And you put on that suit jacket this morning. That's right. GQ Hardaway. That's right. Tennessee State Representative Hardaway shamed all the men yesterday because he was wearing this fabulous bow tie. And they said, never again will I come on here wearing a polo shirt. But you look handsome yesterday. I'm not mad at you. And Reverend Dr. Jeanette Wilson, the executive director of the Push for Excellence program, internationally renowned education program, and another alum of Rainbow Push, Reverend Dr. Marshall Hatch, brilliant theologian, the New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church, and he also created a program over which his son is head. It's a fantastic program, the Ma'afa Redemption Project, where they're working with young people and reinstilling in them, re-inspiring them, giving them this sense of somebodyness. And we're so excited about you today. My love to your beautiful family, that beautiful First Lady Hatch. So let's get right to it. Let me, Representative Reynolds, you are a delegate to the convention. We understand that Vice President Harris has the necessary numbers to be the nominee. She's made the calls and she's gotten the votes. They've done the vote counting, boom. And they're even thinking, well, at least the idea is being floated in corporate media that there should be a virtual, well, she won't have she won't accept the nomination, I guess, because she would have to formally accept it in person with a speech. Maybe she will, I don't know. But they're going to have the vote count virtually. At least that idea is being floated. What are you hearing? And do you think it's a good idea?
Well, first of all, good morning. It's great to be on with such an esteemed panel. It's always exciting to be on with you, Santita. So, as a delegate, I think they're trying to figure all that out. One of the concerns initially was they didn't want a open floor fight where there could be a real chaotic situation where you had, for example, another candidate that made a play, and it would be, let's say a push for Gretchen Whitmer or Gavin Newsom or whoever. So what they're trying to do is to have it so that there's more of a coordination, that there's a understanding that she is the nominee and that there are no surprises. And so I don't know if at this late stage, if that's a bad idea, considering that this was a late withdrawal by President Biden. I'm so excited that he did step aside, even though he stepped aside pretty late in the game. But we still, I mean, the energy is incredible. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but just in terms of the process, I do know that she has the requisite number of delegate support. Texas, we voted yesterday to give our pledge delegates to her, 273 delegates that she'll be receiving from Texas. I know Wisconsin, other states, California. So she has the votes right now. There is no more drama and suspense in terms of who our nominee would be, or would there be a dark horse that overtakes her? All the narratives that were out there, oh, they're going to push her out. That's been put to rest. So I do believe that it's just a matter. It's not I mean, yeah, she'll accept the nomination at the convention, but in terms of for all practical purposes, the voting is pretty much over. It's just a formality.
So then, what's the rush? Why a virtual vote count? Mm, Why? What's the point? I mean, if that's been done, and and clearly she has the votes, so why not wait till you get to Chicago?
I think that they want to rule out any renegades. I'm trying to figure out another word. Anybody that wants to try to put up some chaos, any
No, but isn't that?
uncertainty.
Well, hold on, isn't that democracy?
It is
Right.
democracy.
I mean, it's because it's not chaos. It's an
Well,
opinion, and maybe
I, I think they're trying to avoid any kind of
chaos.
uncertainty, chaos. Anybody that wants to inject some drama into the convention by, saying, "Hey, we haven't been heard. This person hasn't been vetted. We should be allowed to have our say on the floor." I nominate blah blah blah. I think they're trying to avoid that.
But
That's
I think the problem with that, and I want you to jump on in, Morgan Elise, is that it's not democratic, to me. And we look back 40 years at Reverend Jesse Jackson's candidacy as Morgan Elise Johnson, and everyone says, it was historic and it was embraced. That is not true. You know that, Jeanette Wilson, you were in it. He was the renegade. They blocked us 50 ways to Sunday on the floor every single day because back then, that was probably the last time you had a real convention in 88. After that, that was it. Because they did not want anyone like a Jesse Jackson again. That's why they took Bernie out in the primaries. Like, we don't want this anymore. And that, to me, particularly as Black people have fought to get in the door, for us to be overseeing it, it just kind of. But Morgan Elise Johnson, what are you seeing? What say you?
Yeah. Thank you so much for inviting me here and for promoting the tribe. We always need people's support. And good morning, everyone watching. I want to uplift the uncommitted voters and that movement that took over the country to basically put the Democratic Party on notice and say to Joe Biden that we oppose this war on Hamas and the genocide of Palestinians. And in order to be heard, we're going to vote uncommitted. Now, that movement has been bubbling and rising since the fall. They plan to protest by the thousands at the Democratic National Convention. And we got word that Joe Biden was going to accept the nomination virtually. So this, to me, has nothing to do with Kamala, because that was always the plan. And I think it's to, in a way, silence the group of voters who were uncommitted, because there was such a number of uncommitted voters that group got delegates. And so I think that was the plan, to kind of silence that group of voters specifically. That's just what I believe, because this plan was set in place with Joe Biden.
Oh, there's no question. But this is beyond Joe Biden, but he's now a non-factor because has he released all of his delegates? Representative Reynolds or Morgan Elise Johnson, do you know if he's done that yet?
Yes, he did. When he
Okay.
made his endorsement of Kamala Harris on Sunday, he released his delegates, and that was the understanding that they would then flow over to Kamala Harris.
Okay. Well,
But I
okay,
think this
Morgan.
idea that now everybody's going to come together and rally around Kamala, I think we're still forgetting a key group of constituents who are a part of a international movement around Palestine. And that group is still planning to protest. They're still planning to be heard. So I don't think we're going to be walking into a unified convention. I don't think it's going to all be the energy like there was of Obama, who could promote the message of hope and change. She's currently in office. And I do think there's going to be people who are going to demand, change while she's still in office, and say, Joe, on your way out, we have a list of demands for you. And I think that group is going to be heard loud and clear.
Okay, well,
Santita, can I just respond really quickly?
absolutely.
I think
That's why I
more,
want you all to keep the
yeah,
mics muted.
yeah. So I do think that, unlike maybe the DNC, Jamie Harris, and whoever, I do believe that the uncommitted has the right, just like anyone else, to protest. I think the right to protest is a fundamental right that we enjoy as American citizens under the First Amendment. And I do believe that those voices should not be censored. And I think that the protest has led to more awareness of the Palestinian conflict. And I'm hoping that Vice President Kamala Harris uh, will not be under the thumb of President Joe Biden, who I believe curtailed her from being able to call for a ceasefire. Because as the vice president, you serve at the pleasure of the president. She couldn't go and say, yeah, the president's wrong on this issue. But hopefully she has that autonomy to be able to step out. So I encourage the movement to continue. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. In fact, I think that helps shape the policy and the position that they should have, and hopefully that will help her earn those votes, particularly in Michigan and other places where the uncommitted was very loud. I know a large group of Muslims and Muslim people that have very much empathy for what's happening, because you don't have to be a Muslim to be outraged by it. I'm outraged by it, and I'm a proud Christian. I do believe it is genocide, and I do believe that President Biden was on the wrong side of this issue, giving aid and comfort to Benjamin Netanyahu and giving arms with no conditions. So yes, I think it's a great idea, but I do hope that Kamala Harris will be judged on her own record and not necessarily that of President Biden. That's the only caveat I was making was she's her own person, and now as the nominee, she will have to take a stance on where she stands and what her policy positions would be going forward. So that's all I wanted to add to that. So I'm excited. I look forward to seeing all of the people assembled, and even though there are many who don't want to see that, I believe that is one of the most fundamental rights that we have. Without the right to protest, there would have been a George Floyd, rally. There are some who were trying to take it out, like on Project 2025. Without the right to protest, we wouldn't see the civil rights movement. So yes, I think they should continue to speak truth to power and do it in a way that they preserve the protections that are afforded to us by the Constitution.
No question. And, Reverend Wilson, though, to be frank, Morgan Elise Johnson of the Tribe, TRIIBE. Everybody, please become a member, subscribe, support them. Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, I hope she doesn't make the mistake, and I don't think that she will, that I believe Al Gore made. Look, Bill Clinton had his challenges like every human being does. His challenges just became public. You dance with the one who brung you, and you got to stand on the policies that you have stood on. Now she can pivot should she choose, but the policy's been the policy. See, I don't get into politicians, elected officials' feelings, and all that other stuff. I'm a little too deep in that, so I don't pay attention to that. I want to know how you're voting, what you're doing, and what I can do to move you in my direction. How about that? Reverend Dr. Jeanette Wilson, Esquire.
Well, I think that we have a unique opportunity with Kamala Harris.
Of course, you're speaking of your soror, but,
No, not just my soror. She's eminently qualified. However, I think that everyone we put in office is going to have to hold them accountable. The protest will keep her accountable and honest to the issue of our foreign policy. She has been in the background, and I think her voice has been muted as vice president. As Representative Reynolds says, she had to follow a line that perhaps she didn't choose to follow. But once you take that office, and I shall never forget Lyndon Baines Johnson. He was the most consequential president in my lifetime in terms of the legislation that he was able to push through the Senate and the Congress. And his position was, you have to make me do it. So there has to be this creative tension on any president. And it's going to happen. We backed up on Obama. We did not push him as hard as we should have.
No, we didn't back up. We stood down.
Well, stood down, but we did not push him to do what he should have done or could have done in his season. Both times he ran, he did not run with a team. And I think that Kamala Harris, Vice President Harris, has to really look at a team that she's running to. When your father ran, he ran with people running for Congress in Mississippi, throughout the South. He was running with people who were running for county commissioners and so forth. You have to run with.
Let me add this. He had them run because he said, "When I win, you win."
I understand.
So
but
now,
I'm saying,
no. I want us to say it properly because you were there.
I was there in Mississippi where no Black had run for state office since Reconstruction, except one.
The only point that I'm trying to make is that they didn't run with him. He had them. You know this because you had to go convince folks to run.
Yeah.
He said, "No, come with me.
Yes.
Let's do this." Because we forget that just about 40 years ago, in many places throughout the South, Morgan Elise Johnson, we found, and Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds and Pastor Marshall Hatch, you had to register twice to be registered. You had to register the locality and the county seat.
Right.
I mean, that kind of, and then there was a winner take all system. So if you got 49.9% of the vote, you got no delegates. I mean, it was it was such a crazy weighted system, and you know that because we walked in there and we were like, wait a minute, what?
Oh, they were still doing literacy tests in 83, 84. So a lot of things have changed, but I believe that we have to push her continuously as we have to push everyone that we put in office. We have to hold them accountable because if we don't, there are other forces. You're talking about Project 2025. That is a force of people who've written this paper. The Heritage Foundation drafted it, but do know that there are people that will help to enforce it if we're not careful through the congressional representative, through the Senate. And so when I look at how the federal district courts have changed, that's by design. That's not by accident. And so we got to be very focused and intentional about, we elect her, we still have to elect a Congress. We still have to elect senators. We still have to elect state. The HBCUs are struggling because of state representatives. We don't control the states of Tennessee, Mississippi, Alabama, so forth. We've got to think bigger than top of the ticket and not go all the way down ballot.
Well, how do you, because that was one of the things with President Obama was, we were protected because we knew the forces that he was against. Yeah, I mean, I've seen it, happening, with Reverend. I get it. That having been said, as we get who we want, first you have to get what you need because that's politics. It's like, wait a minute, first, I mean, do we go to her now or should we just say, okay, we got to get her in? Or do we say, hey, this is what we need you to do? Because every constituency, Morgan Elise Johnson and Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds and Pastor Marshall Hatch, you're not going to go past the American Jewish and the Israeli lobby. They have red lines. Everybody, the Catholics have red lines. I mean, it's not a bad thing. Everybody's got red lines. It just seems like Black folks' lines are permeable.
Well, that is why
they shouldn't be.
Well, Black people have to learn to have an agenda, not a personality that we like. And so one of the things, and this, Santita, at our convention, we are putting forth an agenda. What do we want? What do we expect of the president? What do we expect of the Congress? What do we expect of our senators? What do we expect of our state reps in terms of education, in terms of jobs? We want one fair wage. We want support for our schools. And so there are a number of things that we have to say to any candidate. It's not just I'm voting for you. I'm voting for this policy that you will implement during your tenure in office.
Well, Reverend
So,
Dr. Wilson, and I, before we come to you, Pastor Hatch, and do we also have this same agenda if a Republican gets in?
yes, it has to be one agenda. It's not based on the person.
Do we push
We
when
push an agenda, not a personality, because
okay.
at the end of the day, we don't hold people accountable because we don't have an agenda that says, oh, you did not expand resources for public education. Oh, you did not provide health care for mothers. You did not uh, have an end to gun violence. You didn't push these policies forward. You eliminated affirmative action at every level. We want to make sure that we are included in the economic pie. And I think we have to be consistent at every level in every state. When Reverend Barber has organized, as you know, 40 states around the country for the Poor People's Campaign. That's one of our planks we're pushing with him. We have the group that's fighting for justice in Israel. We're not just fighting to stop the war. It is also, you have babies and children who are damaged for life because of the bombs and the killing, that murder that happened, loss of life. We have to now support the rebuilding of Gaza. They destroyed Gaza. And those children who are still alive today with broken limbs, and I mean, it's just unimaginable. As a mother, I can't even fathom that. So that has to be part of our agenda, and we have to push it forward, which is why we're having our convention the weekend leading up to the DNC. We're saying to them, this is what we are looking for. We don't want just a personality, a charismatic speaker. We want these issues addressed. And when I look at, and I'm going to close, what Reverend Jackson ran on in 84 and 88, we look at his platform, we are still fighting for some of the same things. Family farmers, a livable wage, not one fair wage. We're fighting for health care for everyone. We're still fighting for high quality public education. We're fighting for HBCUs to get reparations for the money that they didn't get when they were built. And now that these majority land grant colleges are taking the resources like from Tennessee State, North Carolina, A&T, and so forth. That's what we're fighting for.
$16 billion these land grant colleges are owed. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, I guess they're owed. I mean, and my point is, no matter who goes in office, you got to push. And I mean, even if it's someone you love and like and admire, you got to push them, because now they're president of, or that they are elected, Representative Reynolds, to represent everybody. So the people who actively worked against you when you were campaigning, they show up in your office the next day. Do they not?
Yeah.
My friend, I need you. Tell us.
They're head of an empire. That's what she is positioned to be. As the president of the United States, that has its own interest, and of course the pressures on every side. I think we have to understand, and this is a great conversation, the importance of institutions. Institutions have agendas. I mean, so we need a push. We need the civil rights roundtable, the groups that came together, and the NAACP, for example, was another group that came together with an agenda for a people, for a set of interests. And so I think it's very important that we strengthen these institutions, because it's the agenda that drives. The Israeli lobby has an agenda, but
And
that
and
agenda
it's
is
transparent.
forwarded by institutions
Well,
that they create. So it's important.
Pastor Hatch, is important for us to just put out there. It's transpartisan. They
Yes,
they
Oh,
they they
absolutely.
no
they
matter
don't
who's
care.
in. Yeah,
Yeah, they will set up a meeting with the Republican. First of all, they have people in all administrations, and whatever your leanings are,
and they'll give money to both sides,
That's
not
and they go to sleep on election night, because it doesn't matter who
that's
wins.
right.
They
I
have access and entree. So that's why these institutions are very important. So I just want to make that point.
Well, so no, what? So
But with
what are you hearing? You know, as you talk to people. I mean, you are a leader, not just on the West Side. You're a leader in Chicago. You're a leader in the Black church, and you are also dealing with young people. And we're seeing a lot of blame being put on our young people. Oh, they're going to sit on the couch. Oh, they're apathetic. That by inference they're apathetic. I'm like, no, that's not true. People have been disappointed, and they have not. They have been lied to, and the promises have not been kept. So people are saying, you know what? I'm done with this. Now, should they do that, Pastor Hatch? No, because politics is like life. You win, you lose. But I don't want. I'm and we talked about this yesterday, Representative Reynolds. I don't want to see us painted as apathetic, Morgan, because that's not true. We're very engaged. We're also very disappointed, very angry, and hurting, hungry. The University of Chicago's tuition is $100,000 a year for the undergraduate. 100. Who can afford to go there? And it's in the middle of the South Side. 100. Come on, Pastor Hatch. You're a
yeah,
Harvard fan, also.
well, you know, as Morgan Elise Johnson, had talked about that uncommitted movement. I think the people in Vice President Kamala Harris's camp have to understand, without that movement, she would not be in the position she's in today. It's
Why do
been
you
that
think that?
pressure because it was the uncommitted movement that made Joe Biden had to continue to rethink his viability. And that was a major part of him having to stand down.
Mhm.
And what she provides is an opportunity for a reset. For me, prophetically, every time this empire gets in trouble, it turns to African Americans who've been at the bottom of the empire to save it again. And I think that is something that we can't allow ourselves to be used continually without there being a real reset in terms of policies. And I think that's what Kamala Harris is going to have to be challenged with, a reset. She has an opportunity for a reset in the Middle East, which is very important to young people, by the way, because I always say, that people are Black theological in the sense that they look at who's at the bottom, who's being oppressed. In this case, who are the victims of genocide, and they know what the right side is.
Well, I think to that. Oh.
No, I was just going to say,
Hatch?
and we have the obscene, as this it continues to unfold, eventuality of Netanyahu himself coming to town tomorrow to speak to your Congress. And so there are going to be opportunities for the Harris campaign to demonstrate whether or not they're going to engage in a genuine reset around that and a host of other issues, and whether or not they deserve the support. I think that, of course, there's an incredible amount of energy because there always is with a first. And so, yeah, Black women are animated all across the country with the prospects, the symbolism of it. And it does say something about, the African American women, the power of that narrative of the ones whose bodies became sort of the economic engine of the empire, producing slave labor. Now is called upon to save the remnants of this republic again. But I think we can only be disappointed so many times before we really expect there to be fundamental change and not just symbolism. And that's what I think is going to have to be impressed on the Harris campaign, that, smiles and waves at the end are not going to be enough.
Well, I think, though, I think you're right. However, I believe that this is an opportunity for women to not just vote mindlessly. We have to demand those priorities. I'm not just I'm concerned about Gaza, but I'm also concerned about Haiti. We have not done well with Haiti at all. And when I look at Africa that we have raped with taking our human capital from Africa as well as the resources from the continent. We're not doing well fairly with Africa. So I think part of our agenda is an international demand for Kamala, for the Congress, for the Senate. And we don't tend to focus as much as we should on our agenda. I agree with you. And we're at a point where we're being asked to save what they call democracy, save the fundamental tenets of this country, and we've not yet enjoyed the full benefits of being here. So we have to really understand our role prophetically as a people who have to challenge the empire and stop yielding to the empire as if it is benefiting us. And understanding our position, we have power.
Well, I think we have to decide whether we want to be in the empire or not, Morgan Elise, because that is, I think that is a real question for us, because many of us really want to be in. We'll drop more bombs than anybody. We will be detailed to kill Gaddafi.
Well, I think Kamala is Esther.
We'll see.
Could be.
No, she is in the position of Esther.
Okay, well, let's
she can either do what Vashti said, it's your turn. Do with it as you please. You can either leave or go in and fight and demand on behalf of the people. And that's what we have to give her the demands. If we give her the fuel.
Santita's point is well taken, though, about whether or not we want to be a part of the empire or whether or not we want to reform it or from the inside of it be the leaven inside the loaf. It's never lost on me that when America became sort of a target for hostage taking around the world, it's a little bit before maybe your time, Miss Johnson, and when they were taking the hostages, they always used to let the black ones go.
Well, do you know what the story is behind that? Morgan Elise Johnson, I'll give you this. The women's
I want to finish my
board. Let me put a pin in that. No. Let me put a pin in that. The Women's Auxiliary Board of Operation Push at the time was going to the Middle East. And they were in the Middle East when they took the hostages in 79, was it?
79.
At the end of 79, Thanksgiving, because my mother was leading that delegation. And she was with Yasser Arafat. And Yasser Arafat said, look, I worked it out with the Ayatollah. If you go to Tehran, they will give all the hostages to you and your group, as tipping the hat to the black struggle in the United States. When I tell you that President Carter was burning up our phone, I mean, this joker was calling, and I love President Carter, but he was calling like every other hour, get your wife out of there. My father, who put his life on the line any day, he was like, Jackie, you got to get home. This is because we were watching it on TV, but my father put his life on the line, but someone threatened to kill my mother, and my father went to the place where they were threatening to kill her. And she said, we agreed we would never be in the same place. Are you crazy? We got 5 kids. He said, I heard they were going to kill you. I couldn't stay away. But when she had to come home, the compromise was to let the women and the blacks go. Sorry to step on that, but that's a piece of history, Pastor Hatch, that people do not know. That the intersectionality of these movements, Morgan Elise Johnson and Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, and the role that women have played. I had to say that because my mother's like, it happened. I'm like, no, people need to know that. Like, people think that Donna Brazile worked for Reverend. Donna Brazile was on Mrs. Jackson's team, Morgan, at 83, 84. She traveled. She did advance for Mrs. Jackson because my mother's schedule was that robust. And so that gave Donna an opportunity. You remember this, Jeanette, to meet women all over the country.
Santita, it's good to tell that story because that is American history. I didn't know that. I can't speak for Morgan, but I didn't know that. And I think more people should know that because oftentimes the story is only of Reverend Jesse Jackson, but they
Mhm.
don't really talk about your mother and the significant contributions that she made on her own. So thank you for sharing that, and
Well,
that's powerful.
I want to have
mhm.
go back to that conversation about younger voters, because I think people need to understand that Gen Z is now of voting age. Millennials, we're in our 30s and in our early 40s, and there's 20 million of us millennials, and I think about 19 million Gen Zers. So this issue of Palestine, the fact that we're a more globally connected community, we care about what's going on in the world. Kamala doing a strong pivot to acknowledge that, I think, is really important for her to be able to capture the enthusiasm of young people and to get us out to vote. And this question of whether we're going to be a part of the empire, these are things that my peers are actively talking about. I was a part of a conversation with some people I went to college with saying, look, you need to grow up. Some of these resources, that we have are coming from, these other countries. And if we weren't a global empire, we wouldn't have the privileges that we have. And we know that that's true. But at the same time, we have to challenge that mentality, because if we're not fighting for all people, if we're not calling out injustice all the time, if we're not calling out genocide and investing in nourishing institutions for all, aren't we then being complicit in helping to usher in fascism that's going to eat up our own selves? So we have to really, really interrogate that at all fronts. And I remember when Kamala Harris was running the first time and going to an event and listening to her and meeting her the first time. And I remember she said this phrase, she said, "Our founding fathers." And I immediately turned off, because I was like,
They're not my founding father.
no, I don't know these people.
No, wait a minute.
Are you
They
serious?
might be your great grandpa. Just kidding.
Right.
No, I'm not.
That type of
He didn't
language,
acknowledge me.
I'm like, look, I'm not trying to hear it. I don't
What are you
see,
not trying to hear?
this country to me is not really my home. It's not something that that I wear proudly. I'm not flying an American flag. I'm constantly at war with this place. So that same kind of like white supremacist language, I don't want to hear from her. I want her to come fresh with something else, with something new, something that can unify all people, and for her to actually acknowledge that this is a white supremacist empire. I know I'm asking for a lot, but I'm just saying she don't have to give us the full
Oh, wait. No, you demand.
speech of the past. We need something else.
But Morgan, you demand a lot. You might not get everything you want, but you
Right.
could.
But we gotta stretch the imagination so that we can land somewhere that makes this place more livable.
Which
Well,
takes me to Pastor Hatch. But if one moment, it takes me to Pastor Hatch, because he's on the ground dealing with what is it, Generation Z, you're a millennial, honey, because I'm so way past that. I got my AARP card. So,
I just say young folks.
okay. So I mean, what do you? I
he
mean,
doesn't know the Gen Z as X, Y, Z.
Yeah,
Alpha.
my children have helped me a lot. But I think that Morgan's point is just that's where the young people are, and people like me would love to continue to be the bridge, because that's not a new perspective.
Okay.
That was Malcolm X's perspective of the world. That was Martin King, who was at the inauguration of Kwame Nkrumah. That was his perspective of the world. That was Adam Powell's perspective when he defied the government and went to the 2/3 World Conference. That was Howard Thurman's perspective, who is really a father of Black theology, as he goes to an international conference. We've always seen ourselves as an international people who have this mission to elevate humanity to the highest levels, and that's been the way that we have processed what our degradation was all about. It was about using that energy to uplift humanity. So it's a very historically grounded perspective of what it means to be Black in America.
Well, Pastor Hatch, so you're saying that there's always been that tension.
And the okie doke. So this was my sermon. As I'm a Georgetown guy, and I was there when I think Donald, I forget his name, he was the He was the UN ambassador. Andy Young was one as well. Remember when Andy
Mhm.
Young was UN
Yeah.
ambassador? You can see when they began to flip the face of the empire toward the world. That's almost been like an okie doke. I mean, when you look at how many secretaries of state have been African American,
Now,
that's not unintentional.
well,
The
you but
UN ambassador, Linda
Mhm.
Greenfield, there is an African American sister. And so there's been this okie doke played on putting, including Barack Obama, including
Mhm.
Kamala, if she allows herself to be used as the face of an empire that's not ours, but because of the world's affinity with the struggle of African Americans in the middle of this empire, our faces have been used to put a face on the empire
But you know what's
without
interesting?
changing the policies and the values of the way we act in the world. And that's what we
Mhm.
cannot allow this to mean for us, to allow Kamala to be used and we be used to save the empire again without there being a fundamental shift in the values.
Well, this legacy, because indeed it was, that's how Reverend has been able to get the hostages, because of what he stands for, what he symbolized. I mean, I've heard it from the leadership all over the world.
Yeah.
But I also, on my old radio show, they said it changed when Colin Powell went in, when Condoleezza Rice went in. Then people began to see Black people as part of the empire, and they backed up, because Reverend, if he could physically get around, he has space still because of his historical legacy, because they have absolutely made, that because you've worked
because of those Black faces, though, they no longer let the Black ones go. That was the sermon.
That's right. Yeah.
That there was an affinity for who we are all over the world. That when they began to play games with the faces of the empire, confused the rest of the world as to who we were. It's Malcolm's. We didn't land on Plymouth Rock. Plymouth Rock landed on us, and the way we were perceived in the world, not necessarily as Americans, but victims of America. And of course, is Dr. King's last sermon, right? Why America may go to hell, meaning is if we don't repent of militarism, racism, and
imperialism,
consumerism,
And sexism.
Yes.
All these isms. I mean, because
that we may end up with a Trump and go to hell.
But it's not just Trump. Trump is consistent.
Representative. Yes.
I mean, look, everybody continues to look at him as if he is a big bad boogeyman. He is consistent, because when we look at someone who's been anti-busing, that's the current president. I mean, he is quite frankly, he is governed way away from where he has been historically, and I'm grateful for that. But the empire is what it is. So the question is, as Dr. King raised, toward the end of his life, and he said it to not just Harry Belafonte, but several people. He said, leading the fight to end segregation in America was the right thing to do. Getting the Civil Rights Act, all of it. He said, but what did he say?
I fear that I may be integrating my people into a burning house.
I feel I'm leading them into a burning house. And so that's why I asked the question. Yeah. As we're excited in this moment, I don't want us to do to Africa what happened the last time we had this exciting moment, because we killed the most significant and strongest Black figure in Africa. And now Libya is a collapsed state, and we've stolen all their gold. They were one of the top 3 and least indebted nations on earth. Now the Black Libyans are being put literally on auction blocks, and they have been enslaved and they're being sold.
Yeah.
But you know what? I only have a few more minutes here. We're going to go to the next hour, but you have the link should you be able to do that. Because I think these are the questions, Morgan Elise Johnson, that we need to be asking going in. And that's not to hurt anybody. That's so that we don't end up in another place. And I've heard 1 or 2 people say, that they can count on me to bash the party. No, we remade the party. Don't come for me on that. But what I want, and not just the party, American politics. I am not an imperialist. I'm always going to fight imperialism, and I'm always going to hold this country accountable, always. And you don't hold people accountable by not asking questions, by not pushing. Honey, I'm not going to I'm not raising up pom poms, sitting on a short skirt, jumping up and down a field. I don't do that. I'm an adult. I do something else. I ain't mad at the Laker girls, but I'm not one of them. Morgan Elise Johnson, 1 minute for you. Hold on, you're on mute. And she, of course, is it's the tribe, everybody. And you want to be part of the tribe. I'm part of the tribe.
I'm joining.
TRIBE.
Thank you. And we'll be on the ground inside and outside of the DNC. And leading into the DNC, we really want to set a tone and educate our audience on some of this history. I'll be reaching out to some of y'all so you can get some of this history on the record, because I know that a lot of young people feel disempowered because they don't feel connected to any larger movement. And some of this history can help inform and reinvigorate their will to get involved in government, from the local level to the state level to, nationally. So I encourage everyone to submit pieces to the tribe. You can reach out to us at info@thetribe.com. Just remember that we are the tribe with 2 eyes, and stay tuned for us to be on the ground this election season.
Well, we want to get you at the Rainbow Push Convention. And you know what? I invite you, let's have some roundtables on this show with our young people, Morgan. I would love to do that.
Yes, I
so,
know that.
So they can hear so they can hear the history. And as Pastor Hatch, you put us on point, as you do every Sunday at New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church. You said, wait. Being connected to the diaspora is something we have been seeking to do ever since. I had to stop someone one day when they were talking about Malcolm X's mother being a Garveyite. I said, my mother's father was a Garveyite.
My daddy was a Garveyite.
And he went back to the Caribbean because he felt that America was so racist. He was like, I'm out of here. He gave my mother a little coin and left the United States. Well, should I say he returned home? So, because we stopped many places. Charleston and the Bahamas and the South America. That's what we did. Pastor Hatch, what do you want us to know, or what should we be looking for?
Well, just on that point, I'm looking to people like the tribe for my leadership, because that's what keeps me sharp. But listen, Kamala Harris, those Jamaican roots, the slavery in the Caribbean was worse than North America. They literally worked people to death, which is why you have, the roots of Marcus Garvey and, Bob Marley and others. The whole idea of the African diaspora. We were kidnapped and brought here as a part of an imperial project, and certainly not here to be a part of it, but to redeem humanity for those of us who are of that faith tradition. And so, we need to hold our feet to the fire and not just let this very creative energy that swirls around Kamala, because of the struggle of our people, to be misused and misdirected, but to actually to have deep meaning. And she needs to be challenged to understand her Jamaican roots, that she needs to see herself on a mission to project the best of our tradition.
And if that is, and you're right, but she would need our support. You can't leave her out here by herself. Reverend Dr. Wilson, and you, Representative Reynolds, Reverend Wilson.
Well, I think that we are the conscience of America, and we have to be the conscience for Kamala as well. I think she has the gifts and the background. She has a mixture within her, not just of Jamaica, but India. So she has to remember Gandhi. She has to remember Dr. King and Fannie Lou Hamer. When she stands on that stage, she represents who she really is, not who they try to make her to be. And I know it's difficult for her because she's balancing law and faith and history. But we can push her into a place that she can be really impactful for this nation, for women, for Black people, and for people of color. And so I am praying for her, but I am going to work with her. And I would challenge you, Morgan. The tribe has to help her shape her messaging, and we have to help her move beyond the handlers to where God would have her to be. And I'm going to support the tribe.
I am too,
Right.
because as you say, you're changing the narrative. That is your mission, and we can do that.
Yeah.
But it takes that creative tension, Representative Reynolds. We're the ones who have to do the pushing. And Morgan Elise Johnson, I hope you get on over to New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church. They are the site of the largest stained glass murals of the civil rights martyrs in the world. It's a cathedral.
They
You
did
have
an
got,
article on us. The
oh
tribe.
yeah, I know. I read it. But I want, this is something that as people are coming into Chicago, they need to get over to New Mount Pilgrim and see it. They need to see those four little girls in that mural. They need to see that, and they need to see what they're doing at New Mount Pilgrim Church. Representative Reynolds, the last minute belongs to you.
Well, I just want to echo what's been stated. I think one of the poems by Mahatma Gandhi, not poems, but a quote by Mahatma Gandhi kind of sums it up. We must be the change that we want to see in this world. We can't just wait for the next Kamala or next Obama, the next Malcolm, Martin, Fannie Lou Hamer, you fill in the blank. We have to be the change. That means all of us collectively. And to the tribe and the younger generation, the millennials, the Gen X, like Morgan is here to represent all of us and working together cohesively, collaboratively, doing our part, listening and learning from our elders, but including our younger generation and bringing them to the table so they hear, Santita, a lot of the history that we learned just this morning about the contributions of your mother and others in the struggle. And so it's my encouragement to all the listeners, to all of us to do our part. We can't just be armchair quarterbacks waiting on government to solve all of our problems. Yes, government has a role and we should hold our elected officials accountable, but everyone has a role to play. Everyone has a part in the equation. And it's not just voting. Voting is certainly just the beginning, but it's being engaged, helping shape the conversation, helping create the movement, and even sometimes the tension as the protest that Morgan articulated at the beginning. Being on the front lines, being willing to be make good trouble in the spirit of John Lewis, good and necessary trouble. Being on the front line. Sometimes you have to be an agitator, right? You can't always sing kumbaya. Somebody has to, as Reverend used to say, be the tree shaker, the jelly maker. And so I think all of us have a role to play in this democracy, and that is the only way that we'll get to be the form a more perfect union. Is everyone plays their role.
Well, everybody, we're going to the second hour of the Santita Jackson Show. All of you have links to it. If you want to come on for the second hour, please do. Actually, we want to have you there. They're waiting. But the Rainbow Push Convention, August 15th through the 18th, Morgan Elise Johnson, we want the tribe there. And we're going to talk about having some roundtables on this show. And maybe we can share them with the tribe. We can work together. I mean, so that we can share this history, and because they need to know Representative Ron Reynolds. They need to know Pastor Hatch. They need to know Reverend Wilson. We need to know each other because nobody's reinventing anything. We're part of a continuum. That's the way it works. All right, everybody. Check us out on the second hour of the Santita Jackson Show. Back in just a moment.